Good evening, you're watching The Buck Stops Here. I'm Barkha Dutt. On the program this evening, we'll be taking a hard and close look at the controversial Malegaon blast case. Perhaps there has rarely been a terror attack that has triggered as much debate and national controversy as this one. Tomorrow, we're expecting that at least 7 of the 9 men who were arrested 5 years ago for this case will walk out on bail. This after investigative agencies have decided not to oppose their bail. They'll be walking out of prison after 5 years in a case where investigations have flip-flopped, with police initially suggesting Simi and Lashkar-e-Taiba and now saying they're investigating the hand of right-wing terror groups. We'll be looking at what the ramifications of this are, what justice is available to these men who have spent 5 years in prison. Is this a case of stereotyping minorities, and what compensation should be offered if the investigation turns out to have been unfair to at least 7 of these 9 men. There are also similar cases of terror errors across the country. We'll be looking at those as well, raising the wider question of whether investigative agencies are guilty of stereotyping minorities. All this and more on The Buck Stops Here, but first, the headlines. After several hikes in petrol prices, finally a cut. For the first time since petrol was deregulated, petrol will be cheaper by 1.85 rupee per litre. The actual reduction will vary from state to state.
इसमें सरकार का कोई योगदान नहीं है। ये केवल अंतर्राष्ट्रीय बाजार में जो कीमतें बढ़ी, उसकी वजह से बढ़ाना पड़ा, घटी, उसकी वजह से घटा दिया।
But jet fuel prices have been hiked for the second time this month by a steep 2%, making life that much worse for a crippled aviation sector. This on a day when Vijay Mallya says his airline is not packing up just yet, but admits that he is in talks with investors.
We've carried on right through 2011. We've pumped in the required money into the airline. We're not going to abandon the baby.
Just ahead of the assembly elections, Mayawati announces a proposal to divide Uttar Pradesh into 4 new states. Her rivals call it an election stunt. After a series of controversies, including that of the missing nurse, the Ashok Gehlot government resigns en masse. The BJP says the chief minister should have quit too. And 9 men arrested for the Malegaon blast in 2006 could walk free tomorrow after 5 years. We debate whether there has been a miscarriage of justice in the case.
सरकार को कार्रवाई करने के लिए हम मजबूर कर देंगे।
On the Buck Stops Here this evening, our special debate. Tomorrow, it is expected that at least 7 of the 9 men originally arrested for the Malegaon blast of 2006 will be walking out after the accusations against them have hit a dead end. Investigative agencies have gone from blaming the Simi and the Lashkar-e-Taiba to now saying that they're investigating the role of right-wing terror groups. What is, however, the justice and the compensation offered to these men? Can they now be presumed innocent? And if they are indeed to be presumed innocent in this case, how do they live beyond the stigma of having been falsely branded terrorists? That'll be our big debate tonight. Like always, you can take part in our debate online. Our webpage, ndtv.com/buckstops, is now open for your comments, so keep them coming. Like every night, you can send us those tweets. The volley of responses we get every night, our producers will be picking the best ones to run through the course of this 60-minute special on many of the contentious questions raised by the Malegaon blast case of 2006. Let's get you started now with a special report brought to you by my colleagues Imtiaz Jalil and Rashmi Rajput. The 2006 Malegaon blast case was amongst the most high-profile and has turned out to be amongst the most contentious and widely debated terror attacks in India. Initially, the blame was put at the door of the ultra-radical group Simi. Investigative agencies back then said that Simi, along with the Lashkar-e-Taiba, was believed to be behind these terror attacks. However, many years later, this was an investigative trail that went cold. In fact, it virtually hit a dead end. Now, in 2011, investigative agencies are talking about exploring the hand of right-wing terror groups, among them contentious leaders like Swami Asimanand. In both cases, confessional statements were cited as evidence, and in both cases, the confessions, whether by Asimanand or whether by the 9 Muslim boys arrested in the Malegaon blast case, were retracted. Where does the truth lie then? Here's our special report.
उनको सलाखों के पीछे अब रहना चाहिए जब उनको समझेगा कि ये 5 साल कैसे हमारा गया है।
हम ऐसे पुलिस ऑफिसर्स जो कि सेकुलरिज्म के नाम पर धब्बा हैं, उनके खिलाफ सरकार को कार्रवाई करने के लिए हम मजबूर कर देंगे। हमको पैसा नहीं चाहिए।
We are at the home of Abrar Ahmed, a small powerloom owner who was arrested in 2006 for his alleged involvement in the Malegaon twin blasts.
They have waited 5 years for their son to return home, while the other son, a lawyer, has spent most of these years in and out of court, fighting for justice for his brother and the other 8 accused.
Since for the last 5 years, these accused persons were behind bars without any reason, and NIA has given no objection. So we are happy, but it seems that is being delayed.
The National Investigation Agency has let 7 of the 9 men out on bail for lack of evidence, nullifying the evidence based on which the Maharashtra Anti-Terror Squad had pronounced them accused 5 years ago. At that time, the ATS accusations sounded rather convincing, coming as the Malegaon blast did on the heels of the Gateway twin blasts and the more recent and more damaging serial train blasts. The pattern appeared similar. And right-wing terror was not yet a mainstream debate, reported only in media fringes, as few right-wing activists in Kanpur and Nanded were blown up by bombs they were trying to make. Everybody bought the narrative announced by the Maharashtra ATS, that they are Simi men out to avenge the Gujarat communal riots brought together as a domestic module by the Lashkar-e-Taiba. In the years to follow, the media would introspect whether it was a case of religious terror branding, an introspection urged by alleged wrongful arrests in other blasts, like the train blasts in which 11 Simi men were arrested by the Maharashtra ATS, men who are still facing trial, even though the Mumbai crime branch internally contests it as a case of Indian Mujahideen terror. Or the 3 blasts in Hyderabad in 2007, the Makkah Masjid, Lumbini Park and Gokul Chaat blasts. Nearly 23 Muslim men were arrested for waging war against the state. Men who now the National Minorities Commission says were targeted purely on communal grounds. The Minorities Commission recommended legal action against police officers who imprisoned innocent men and compensation for the wrongly accused from the cops' salaries.
Back in Mumbai, Maharashtra ATS officers connected to the Malegaon blast case tell NDTV all 9 men had some connection with the banned Student Islamic Movement of India. They were detained several times in the past. They were legitimate leads for the police. And even now, their bail doesn't mean a clean chit. Most importantly, they say the NIA is not opposing their bail on the basis of Swami Asimanand's confession, which the Swami has retracted.
Sources in the NIA now in charge of the case have told NDTV that neither these 7 men nor the Simi has any role in the Malegaon blast. Instead, it is pursuing right-wing involvement in the case of people who have already been arrested in other cases of Hindutva terror. But what about these men who spent 5 years in jail in the prime of their lives for a crime they did not commit? Who will answer them? With Imtiaz Jalil in Malegaon and Rashmi Rajput in Mumbai, Amitabh Revi, NDTV.